Welcome to Ancient China, everybody. Today we're going to kick off by talking about Confucius, who I'm sure you've heard of, Confucianism. Um, he lives right before the Warring States period of China, which is about 50 or 550 BC, and his name is actually Confucius. Confucianism is not really a religion, it's more of like a way of life. And it is founded in the principle that if you do not know how to serve human beings, how in any capacity could you know how to serve the gods? The biggest things that are emphasized in Confucianism are duty and harmony/empathy, and it's based around 5 constant relationships: the parent, child, spouse to spouse, older brother, younger brother, older friend, younger friend, and ruler and subject. Confucius is a big believer in the golden rule: do not do to others what you would not have done to yourself. Well, it's like a negative golden rule. Now we're going to contrast this with another Chinese philosophy that you've probably heard of called Taoism, or Taoism spelled with a D or a T. And it is a way of life that is created by this guy named Lao Tzu, or Lao Tzu. And he might be fake, we don't know. It's a surprise. But he wrote a cool book called the Tao Te Ching, also known as the Way of the Tao, and he rides a majestic water buffalo, so that is very cool. Tao is the way, and the whole philosophy behind Taoism is active versus passive, working hard versus working smart, and a view of good versus evil. And it has this concept of, it's called Wei, which is action through inaction. So even when you make a choice to not make a choice, that in itself is a choice, if that makes sense. You don't want to be just sitting around, you're moving with nature. Don't grow against the grain. Now, it's also founded in the mystery of opposites, so black, white, male, female, strong, weak, good, evil, and how they flow into each other. If you've ever seen yin yang, that is a Taoist symbol. That there's a little bit of bad in every good, and there's a little bit of good in every bad. Now, Buddhism has also traveled to China at this point, the Mahayana version. If you've ever seen Fat Buddha, that's Mahayana Buddhism, the version that's less strict. So now China has 3 faiths: Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. There's also another philosophy, legalism, where basically if you go against the government, they will kill you. But we didn't learn about that in my class, so I'm just going to skip it for now. Another important thing to remember is the mandate of heaven, which is the principle that the gods allow the emperor to rule as long as he is virtuous. There's a big emphasis on virtue in China. But if suffering begins to happen under the emperor, the gods want him out, and he needs to be overthrown. This is why there's so many different dynasties in China, because they're all coming around with the mandate of heaven. Civil service exams are another big part of Chinese history, because it's a place where your abilities can help you climb to the top. You know, typically it goes to your son, who will be the ruler, but if you're smart, you can make it in China. The best jobs in the government go to the people who score highest on the civil service exams. They come around during the Han Dynasty, which is kind of about the time of the Roman Empire, and they continue on till 1903. So that's almost 2,000 years of civil service exams. How crazy. But if you cheat, they will literally kill you. Like, literally kill you. To take a quick look at women in China, foot binding was a really, really big thing. Now, if you've never heard of foot binding, do not look it up on Google Images. You will be grossed out. I was the first time I saw it in the 7th grade. It scarred me for life. But they wanted to bind the feet of the women because then they would move as gracefully as a floating lotus flower in a pond. It began at a very young age and makes walking really hard. So what they would do is break the arch of your foot and wrap it really, really tightly by your mother. And then it would, you'd take it off later and you'd have this really gross looking tiny, teeny, tiny little baby doll foot when you're a woman, and it would be very hard to walk. Thankfully, it was outlawed in 1915 when Christian missionaries and Western women spoke out about foot binding as it is brutality against women. And the reason that it all started is because one emperor had a big foot fetish, which is super gross. But China is not the only place where they do types of wrapping. In the South Pacific, they do head binding, which is a sign of... It would make you look like you had a long head, so it would be a sign of wisdom. And sometimes they would even do it with your neck. Now you know a little bit more about ancient China. In the next episode, we're taking a trip to Greece, so I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.